average cost of lead, this is actually pretty low. But this is according to one roofing manufacturer. I question that because I know most contractors spend more than that per lead. Average marketing budget was about $48,000. Again, I question that, but that's what they're telling me. Here's one of the myths that surrounds roofing and sales. Brian touched on this earlier, that the main concern is price. I can tell you that there's no way the main concern of a homeowner is price. I don't care who they are, what city, what town, their main concern is not price, but that's what most contractors believe. Consumers only see price as a concern when value isn't shown. Okay, so if you can show value, the price, I don't say it goes away, because price is always a factor. I mean, let's face it, there is something there with price. It's just not the major factor if you can show some value. Higher value, less price is considered. Myth number 2, jobs are sold, not bought. Most contractors believe that jobs are sold. I'm telling you that most jobs are not sold. Now, I'm up here telling you how to, this whole thing is about the selling puzzle, but most jobs are not sold. Most consumers actually have to find their own contractor either through the internet or referral. And most contractors spend a lot of time preparing a bid and mailing it in. That's most contractors do not sit down and do some sort of presentation. And Brian asked earlier, how many of you have a presentation, a standardized presentation? I think 1 or 2 people raised their hand. That's the truth. So if you think that there are people out there selling, there's virtually nobody's out there selling roofing jobs or any contracting jobs. Most of them are just mailing it in. I know contractors, and I see these contractors every day, because we have like over 400 contractors in our network. And they always come in, and I find there are some guys some owners, they're so afraid of dealing with a homeowner or any owner, they'll fill out a bid, they'll either email it or they'll go to the home, put it in a mailbox and run, hoping that the homeowner's not there because they don't want to talk to the homeowner. It's just the way it is. So if you can come up with some sort of presentation, you're miles ahead of the competition. This kind of process is bidding. It's not selling. And if you're bidding jobs, I mean, look, there's a place for bidding jobs. I mean, there's a place in this industry for bidding jobs. I just hope that none of you go there. Because in order to win a bidding process, the chances are you have to be the lowest price. And you have to hope I didn't leave too much out. I've been there. I've done government work. I've been in that bidding process. I've won jobs where I was low by $70,000, $80,000 thinking, oh my God, what did I do? What did I miss? Hopefully this doesn't bankrupt me. That's a terrible place to be. It's a terrible place to be the low-cost provider, because there's always somebody else that's going to be willing to go out of business quicker than you. So it's not the place you want to be competing against. So selling. Professional contractors. Professional contractors develop their prospects, their leads from a marketing plan. They cover their leads professionally. What does covering leads professionally look like? It means dressing the part. It means looking the part. It means showing up in the right vehicle. It means being on time. It means when you set an appointment that you're there at that time. Not an hour early, not an hour late, not 15 minutes late. You're there when you say you're going to be there. I mean, think about yourself. If you called the cable company, what's the big cable provider in the area? I don't know. Is it Comcast? Yeah. If you're lucky, right? I mean, if you're lucky, you get a 4-hour window. And you never know when they're going to show up. Doesn't it piss you off? Sometimes, but sometimes they're early. And then that screws you up because what happens if you're not there? Then they leave and you got to start the whole process over again. It gets upsetting, right? Well, put yourself in your customer's position. If you're giving them a giant window, you're starting out pissing them off. Why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to just say, hey, we're going to be here at 10 o'clock? And that's it. And your salesperson is there at 10 o'clock. I mean, you got to create that culture in the salesperson. You got to hold the salesperson accountable, but he has to be there when he says he's going to be there. And he doesn't show up, in a beat-up truck or a beat-up car, opening the door and the fast food wrappers fall out the door and the beer can rolls down and he picks it up and throws it in. I mean, this is all, you've got to do away with those things. Then you have to actually make a professional presentation. What does a professional presentation look like? I mean, I can show you a professional presentation. I don't have time to do it today, but if you want to see one, I can show you. Just see me. I can show you how to, what it looks like. But you have to come up with some sort of presentation that everybody in your company does the same presentation. Because if you don't do the same presentation, everybody doesn't do the same presentation, you're going to have serious problems. You're going to have expectation problems with the homeowners. You're going to have problems with neighbors because, frankly, one job leads to the next job. And if you have more than one salesperson, and one guy's selling to this neighbor and his neighbor calls up and then another salesperson goes over there and he's not doing the same thing, he's not saying the same types of things, you're going to have problems. You're going to have satisfaction problems. Good selling programs help overcome the 4 most common problems. Biggest problem that every contractor faces, and I don't care what city you're in, is the lowball competitor. Everybody's got them. Brian talked about earlier a $60 million contractor. I know that contractor. I've had conversations with that contractor. He actually believes, and this is his thought process, I am the low-cost provider. He's like your worst nightmare. I mean, he is. He's like a nightmare. But that's, he's the low-ball competitor. And we all have those low-ball competitors out there. So how do you overcome a low-ball competitor? Professional presentations help overcome that. It overcomes juggling the ball too many balls. Someone was asking me about a salesperson earlier, and should I hire a salesperson? Here's my feeling on that. Hiring a salesperson is probably the easiest ball that you're juggling to hand off to somebody. Because if you have a professional presentation and you have a set presentation, you can teach that to anyone. I can take anybody I've taken the head of marketing for a major manufacturer who never did an in-home sales presentation. They were a marketing person for a siding manufacturer. They were leaving the employment of the manufacturer. They wanted to become a contractor. Why they wanted to become a contractor, I have no idea. They had a really nice job, but they decided they wanted to leave. They knew the business. They knew all the marketing ins and outs of the siding business, and they decided they're going to move across the country from California to God knows where in New Hampshire, and they opened up a siding company. This is a woman who never sold a thing in her life. In 1 week, I taught her how to sell. She does about $2 to $3 million a year at 45 to 50% margins. She does pretty good. It's not hard to teach a sales process. Nowadays, it's harder to teach the actual technical end of things than it is to teach selling. So that's the easiest thing to do. It also overcomes peaks and valleys. If you're doing a direct marketing sales approach, You can develop leads when there's no business due to the seasonality or other reasons, and that kind of levels things out and makes a lot of things easier to deal with. It also overcomes little profit. Doing a professional presentation can justify a higher price in and of itself. Now, for the most part, in order to charge a higher price, you need to do a bigger, better job. It's hard to just say, all right, go forth and sell your jobs for 50% more. How do you do that? I mean, that's a hard thing to do, right? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, most people that I meet when I'm going through their financials, the solution is usually you need to raise your price. But it's real easy for someone to come into your business and say, well, you want to make more money, just raise your price. How do you raise your price? How do you get more money? How do you go from getting $6,000 to $10,000 for that roof? Well, I'm not saying a professional presentation is going to cover the entire gap, but it'll cover most of it. Because remember, most of your competition is not doing that. Most of your competition is going out and saying, okay, well, you got 35 square, and we're going to tear the roof off, we're going to put an underlayment on, we're going to put new shingles on, we're going to follow the code requirements, and the price is X dollars, and then we're going to give you, oh, by the way, we're going to give you manufacturer's warranty, and this and that. That's as far, and we can start next week. It lasts a whole 15 minutes, if that. When I talk about a professional presentation lasts about an hour to an hour and a half. No. Been doing it for 17 years. Residential. I mean, you can get it done in an hour. I mean, if you want to speed through it, you can get it done in an hour. But there's a lot to it. But you got to want to do it. But those that do it, they reap a lot of rewards. My company does $5 million a year, average. 5.5, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 4.8. It's never really lower than that. We work on a 60% gross profit. I mean, that's what it is. It is what it is. Now, I don't cheat. I pay all my insurance. I pay workman's comp. I pay liability insurance. I pay my taxes. I don't hide any cash. I don't play any of those games. I don't have to. I can sleep at night. I've got a nice business going, and I make a nice profit on the bottom line. And I'm not ashamed to say, hey, we earn 10% on the bottom line. Sometimes it's 11 or 12. Sometimes it's 8 or 9, depending on if something goes wrong that year. But it's a nice business. And I take between 8 and 9% of the volume as my salary. And I'm not ashamed to say that either. And I'll tell a homeowner that. A homeowner wants to deal with a contractor that's making money, that's going to be around. They don't want to fly by night. Now, I'm not saying that's every homeowner. Look, you can look at the population of consumers out there and say there's half the people out there are just going to say, well, the hell with that. I'm not going to pay for that. I just want the cheapest thing that's out there. And there are some people that are like that. Well, just you got to have the mentality that you're the guy behind the counter in a deli. Next. Which is not my customer. You can't service. There's no one in this room that can service the entire population of this area that needs roofing. There's not one person in here that has a company big enough to service the entire population. So why are you trying to? Service the people that are willing to pay you the right amount of money to do the work so that you can earn the living that you want to earn.